Tom adjusted the controls of his ship, the Starborn, as he drifted through the endless black of space. The asteroid belt stretched out before him, massive chunks of rock floating silently. It was supposed to be another routine salvage mission. Find old wrecks, take what was useful, and sell it for a profit. But today, something felt different. His scanners had picked up a strange signal coming from an unidentified ship, hidden between two massive asteroids. The ship didn't match any known designs. It wasn't human. Strange, Tom muttered to himself. He had seen many wrecks in his years as a scavenger, but something about this one sent a chill down his spine. With slow precision, he maneuvered the Starborn closer. The ship looked ancient, its smooth metallic surface covered in scratches and dents. There were no markings, no signs of life, and no distress beacon. It was just floating, lifeless. Tom put on his helmet and activated his suit's thrusters, pushing himself toward the wreck. As he neared the ship's entrance, he noticed something even stranger. The doors were already open. It was as if someone had left in a hurry, or someone never got the chance to close them. Cautiously, he stepped inside. The air inside the wreck was thin, cold, and still. His flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a silent, abandoned interior. Wires dangled from the ceiling. Strange symbols were etched along the walls. The ship's design was nothing like the ones he had seen before. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was just another part of the ship, a figure sitting motionless in what looked like a pilot's chair. The body was sleek, metallic, almost like a sculpture. A humanoid shape, but clearly a machine. A robot, Tom whispered. It didn't move. Its silver skin reflected the dim light of his flashlight. The design was unlike any android he had ever seen, smooth, almost too perfect. Its face was emotionless, eyes closed, as if in deep sleep. Tom stepped closer. If it was a robot, it could be worth a fortune. Alien technology like this would sell for more credits than he had seen in his entire life. Reaching out, he placed a hand on its shoulder. Cold, lifeless, no response. "Looks like I hit the jackpot," he muttered. His mind raced with possibilities. He could take it back to the Starborn, run some scans, see if it had any data inside. Maybe it could even be repaired and sold. Tom activated his comms. "All right, got something interesting here," bringing it back to the ship. With careful movements, he unstrapped the figure from the chair and hoisted it onto his shoulder. It was heavier than expected, but his suit's strength enhancers helped him carry the weight. As he made his way back through the wreck, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The ship was too silent, too untouched. Why was this machine left behind? Back on the Starborn, Tom placed the figure on a workbench in his ship's small lab. The artificial lights reflected off its metallic skin. Now that he could see it clearly, he noticed more details, small patterns etched into the arms, almost like tattoos. The design was too intricate for a simple robot. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, let's see what you are." He activated his scanner, running it over the figure's body. A holographic display appeared, showing internal readings. Tom expected to see mechanical parts, circuits, and artificial components. But what he saw made his stomach tighten. Organic tissue detected. What? Tom frowned. He adjusted the scanner, thinking it was an error. He ran the scan again. The same result. Beneath the metallic surface, there were veins. There was muscle structure. There was a heartbeat. Slow, faint, but real. His breath caught in his throat. This wasn't a robot. This was something else. A life form. Before he could process what that meant, the figure's eyes snapped open. Tom stumbled back, knocking over a tool tray. His heart pounded as he grabbed for his weapon. But the figure didn't move. It just stared at him, its silver blue eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Then it spoke. Not in words he could understand, but in a strange, melodic language that sent a shiver down his spine. Tom tightened his grip on his blaster. "Stay back." The figure blinked slowly, then lifted a hand to its head, as if waking from a deep sleep. It spoke again, this time softer, questioning. Tom's translator struggled, spitting out fragmented words. "Who? You?" Tom hesitated. This wasn't what he had signed up for. He thought he had found an abandoned machine. Instead, he had woken up something alive. Something that shouldn't be here. Something that had been left behind for a reason. And now, it was awake. Tom stood frozen, his pulse pounding in his ears. The alien woman, because that's what she was, blinked slowly, her silver blue eyes glowing softly in the dim light of the Starborn's lab. She wasn't a robot. She wasn't just some machine he could sell. She was alive. She sat up slowly, her movements controlled but cautious, as if she wasn't sure where she was. Her metallic skin shimmered under the artificial lights, and strange, delicate markings ran along her arms, patterns that seemed to pulse faintly. Tom kept his blaster aimed at her, not willing to take any risks. "Stay where you are." She tilted her head, studying him. Then she spoke again. Her voice was soft, melodic, but the words made no sense to him. Tom's translator earpiece crackled, struggling to process the language. A few broken words came through. "Where? I." Tom hesitated. This was bad. He had expected salvage, not a living alien. And now he had no idea what to do. He cleared his throat. "You're on my ship. Who are you?" The woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked down at her own hands, flexing her fingers as if testing her body. She touched her arms, tracing the glowing markings, her expression unreadable. Then her gaze returned to him. She placed a hand on her chest. "Mira." Tom frowned. "Mira, that's your name." She nodded once. Then she gestured toward him, a silent question in her glowing eyes. "Tom," he answered, still wary. "I found you on a wrecked ship." Mira blinked at that. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. Instead, she placed a hand on the side of her head and closed her eyes, as if trying to remember something. Tom lowered his blaster slightly, but he didn't relax. Something about this situation didn't add up. "Do you remember what happened?" Mira opened her eyes again, confusion clear on her face. She shook her head slowly. "No, lost." Tom muttered under his breath. Great, just great. Not only was she alive, but she had no memory of why she was in that wreck. He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "All right. Look, I don't know what you are, or why you were left behind, but I need some answers. Are you human?" Mira frowned at the question, then shook her head. "No." Tom exhaled. "Didn't think so." She touched her arm, then looked at him again. "You thought, machine." Tom hesitated. He wasn't sure how she would react to the truth, but lying didn't seem like a good idea. "Yeah," he admitted. "I thought you were a robot." Something flickered in Mira's expression, something almost like hurt. She looked away for a moment, her fingers tightening against her arm. Then she took a slow breath. "Not machine." "Yeah," Tom muttered. "I figured that out." The ship's console beeped suddenly, breaking the silence. Tom turned toward the display, frowning. A new signal had appeared on the radar. A ship, small but fast, was approaching from the asteroid field. Tom's stomach twisted. He hadn't sent out any signals. He hadn't contacted anyone. So how had someone found him so fast? Mira tensed. She turned to the screen and stared at the approaching ship, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "Trouble?" Tom asked. Mira didn't answer immediately, but then, after a long pause, she whispered, "They come. For me." Tom swore under his breath. "Who?" Mira's face darkened, her hands curling into fists. "Not safe." The Starborn's alarm suddenly blared, confirming what Tom had feared. Whoever was out there had locked onto them. Tom shot her a sharp look. "Okay, Mira, you need to start talking. Who are they?" She clenched her jaw, struggling to form words. Then she finally answered. They hunt me. That was all Tom needed to hear. His gut told him that whoever was coming wasn't friendly, and if they were after Mira, that meant they were now after him too. He didn't like getting involved in other people's fights, but he sure as hell wasn't going to sit still and wait to get shot down. Tom grabbed the controls. All right, hold on. We're getting out of here. Mira's eyes widened slightly, as if surprised by his decision. You? Help. Tom gave her a sharp look. I didn't sign up for this, but I'm not about to let some unknown ship take me down. So yeah, I guess I'm helping. For now. Mira stared at him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Thank you. Tom didn't respond. He focused on the controls, engaging the thrusters. The Starborn turned sharply, pushing away from the asteroid belt. The enemy ship moved fast, following them. The ship's scanners blared another warning. Incoming fire detected. Damn it, Tom muttered. He activated the shields just in time. A bright blast struck, shaking the ship but not piercing the defenses. Mira watched the screen, her hands gripping the edge of the console. Faster. I know. Tom snapped. He pushed the engine harder, weaving through the asteroid field. The enemy ship followed, firing again. This time, the blast missed by inches. Mira suddenly turned to him. Let me help. Tom glanced at her. Do you even know how to fly? She placed a hand on the control panel. Her fingertips glowed, and the ship's display flickered. Tom's eyes widened as the ship's thrusters suddenly optimized, pushing the Starborn to speeds he hadn't thought possible. What the? Mira's expression was calm, focused. Trust me. Tom didn't know why, but in that moment he did. The Starborn shot forward, escaping the asteroid field in record time. The enemy ship hesitated at the edge, then finally stopped chasing. Tom exhaled sharply, his hand still gripping the controls. Okay, he muttered. That was too close. Mira leaned back, her expression unreadable. Not over. Tom sighed. Yeah. Figured. He turned to face her, finally accepting the truth. Whatever he had gotten himself into, it wasn't just a salvage job anymore. And Mira was at the center of it all. Tom took a deep breath and leaned back in his chair. His hands were still gripping the controls tightly, but for now, they were safe. The enemy ship had stopped chasing them, but he knew it wasn't over. He turned to Mira, who was staring at the radar screen, her glowing silver-blue eyes unreadable. She looked calm, but Tom could sense the tension in her posture. All right, he said, breaking the silence. I need answers. Now. Mira glanced at him but didn't speak immediately. She hesitated, as if trying to decide how much to say. Tom folded his arms. I just risked my life for you, Mira. If someone's hunting you, I need to know why. She lowered her gaze for a moment, then finally spoke. I do not remember everything. Tom frowned. Convenient. She ignored his comment and touched the markings on her arms, tracing them with her fingertips. The glowing patterns pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. I was on that ship, she said, but I do not know why. I only remember fear, running, then nothing. Tom sighed. He wasn't sure if she was telling the truth or if she just didn't want to tell him. Either way, he was stuck in this now. He rubbed his temples. All right, let's start with something simple. What are you? Mira looked at him. I am Ilaran. That didn't mean anything to Tom. He had never heard of an Ilaran before, but before he could ask more, the ship's scanner beeped. Tom's stomach twisted. Another incoming signal. His fingers flew over the controls, checking the source. But this time, it wasn't an enemy ship. It was just a passive scan, something scanning them from a distance. Mira tensed. They are searching. Tom muttered a curse under his breath. Well, they found us once, so they'll probably do it again. He turned to Mira. Listen, if they're tracking you, We need to figure out how. Are you carrying a tracker? Mira shook her head. No. Tom narrowed his eyes. Then how did they find you so fast? Mira's glowing eyes flickered with something. Concern. She placed a hand over her chest, as if thinking. Then, suddenly, she froze. Her face paled. Tom noticed. What? What is it? She looked at him with realization in her eyes. Inside me. Tom's stomach dropped. What do you mean inside you? Mira didn't answer immediately. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and then said, Scan me again. Tom hesitated. The first time he had scanned her, he had already seen something strange. Her body wasn't just metal, it was biotech, part machine, part organic. Still, he grabbed the handheld scanner and ran it over her body once more. The results popped up on the screen. His heart skipped a beat. There was something embedded deep inside her chest, something small but powerful. It wasn't just part of her body. It was a foreign object, hidden so well that he hadn't noticed it at first. His throat went dry. Mira, what is that? She looked down at the screen, her face troubled. I do not know. Tom swore. He had a bad feeling about this. Really bad. If they're tracking you, he said slowly, then this thing inside you, it's probably the reason. Mira clenched her fists. Then we must remove it. Tom blinked. Whoa, whoa, just like that. She met his gaze. If we do not, they will find us again. And next time, we may not escape. Tom exhaled sharply. She had a point. If the enemy was tracking her, the only way to stay safe was to get rid of whatever was inside her. But there was one problem. I'm not a doctor, Tom said. I don't have the tools to remove whatever that is. Mira's expression didn't change. Then we find someone who does. Tom shook his head. That's easier said than done. If we go to a medical station, people will ask questions. And if this thing is valuable, we could end up with more than just one enemy. Mira frowned slightly, but she didn't argue. Tom thought for a moment, then sighed. I might know a place. Mira tilted her head. Where? Tom hesitated, then pulled up the ship's navigation system. A small independent research station appeared on the screen. It was far from any major planets, hidden deep in neutral space. I know a guy there, Tom said. He's not exactly legal, but he knows how to handle strange tech. If anyone can remove that thing safely, it's him. Mira studied the screen for a moment, then nodded. Then we go. Tom exhaled. He wasn't sure if this was the best idea, but it was the only idea they had. He set the course. As the Starborn jumped into hyperspace, Tom glanced at Mira one more time. There was still so much he didn't understand about her, about what she was carrying. But one thing was clear. She wasn't just some lost alien. She was important, and someone out there would do anything to get her back. The Starborn sped through hyperspace, its engines humming steadily. Tom leaned back in his seat, staring at the navigation screen. The independent research station was still a few hours away. Until then, all he could do was wait. Mira sat across from him, silent. Her glowing silver-blue eyes were fixed on her hands as if lost in thought. The markings on her arms pulsed faintly, their soft light reflecting off the metal walls. Tom exhaled. He wasn't good at dealing with mysteries, and Mira was turning out to be the biggest one of his life. So, he said, breaking the silence, let's talk about this thing inside you. Mira lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes. What do you wish to know? Tom gestured vaguely. For starters, what do you think it is? You don't remember much, but you've got to have some kind of feeling about it. Mira hesitated, then placed a hand over her chest. She closed her eyes, as if focusing. After a long moment, she spoke. It is old. Tom frowned. Old. She nodded. Not just a part of me. It was put there. Long ago. Tom narrowed his eyes. By who? Mira shook her head. I do not remember. Tom let out a frustrated sigh. He wasn't sure if she really didn't remember, or if she was just hiding the truth. Either way, it didn't help. He tapped the control panel. Well, if it's a tracker, that means someone wanted to find you. Maybe they put it inside you to keep you from escaping. Mira's expression darkened slightly. Perhaps. Tom watched her carefully. Mira, are you dangerous? Her glowing eyes flickered, surprised by the question. No. Tom studied her face, trying to read her. You sure? Mira didn't look away. Yes. Tom sighed. He wasn't sure why, but he believed her. Before he could say anything else, the ship's alarm suddenly blared. Tom shot up from his seat. What now? He checked the scanner, and his stomach twisted. Something was following them. Mira stood as well, staring at the screen. They found us. Tom swore under his breath. How? We're in hyperspace. Mira's hand tightened into a fist. They do not need to see us. They only need to feel the signal. Tom ran a hand through his hair. Damn it. That thing inside you is like a beacon. The ship's warning system beeped again. Hostile energy detected. Tom's grip tightened on the controls. They're going to try and pull us out of hyperspace. Mira looked at him. Can you stop it? Tom's jaw clenched. I can try. He quickly adjusted the power flow, rerouting extra energy to the shields. The ship trembled slightly as the enemy ship tried to disrupt their jump. Mira placed her hands on the control panel. Let me help. Tom hesitated. The last time she had done something like this, the ship had moved faster than it should have. He wasn't sure how, but her connection with technology was unnatural. Fine, he muttered. Do your thing. Mira's fingertips glowed as they touched the ship's controls. The starborn vibrated slightly, then suddenly surged forward. The enemy's pull weakened for a second, just enough for Tom to push the engines harder. Then, just like that, the threat vanished. Tom stared at the scanner, his breath shallow. The enemy ship was gone, or rather, they had lost track of them. He turned to Mira, his mind racing. Okay, how the hell did you do that? Mira looked at her hands, her expression unreadable. I do not know. Tom exhaled sharply. Of course you don't. He sat back down, rubbing his temples. This was getting way too strange. Mira spoke softly. We must hurry. Tom nodded. Yeah, before they try again. The rest of the journey was silent. Mira remained still, her face calm but her hands clenched tightly. Tom could tell she was nervous, even if she didn't show it. Finally, the ship dropped out of hyperspace. Before them, floating in the darkness, was the research station, a small metallic structure hidden near a gas giant. Tom activated the comms. This is the Starborn, requesting docking clearance. A voice crackled through the speakers. Tom. That you? Tom smirked. Hey, Gray. Long time. Gray was an old contact, a scientist who didn't exactly follow the law. If anyone could help them, it was him. There was a pause before Gray responded. You in trouble? Tom glanced at Mira. Something like that. Another pause. Then, docking bay 3. I'll be waiting. The Starborn moved forward, entering the station. As they landed, Tom turned to Mira. Listen, he said. Gray's a good guy, but he's not gonna help us for free. Mira nodded. I understand. Tom gave her one last look. Whatever happens in there, just stay close. Mira met his gaze. I will. The airlock hissed open, and Tom stepped out first, scanning the room. The docking bay was dimly lit, metallic walls covered in rust and wires. A man stood near the entrance, a tall figure in a long coat, arms crossed. His short gray hair and sharp eyes made him look older than he probably was. Tom, Gray said, smirking. Didn't think I'd see you again. Tom shrugged. Yeah, well, I need a favor. Gray's eyes flickered to Mira, and for a brief second, Tom saw something odd in his expression. Not surprise, not curiosity, but recognition. Tom's stomach tightened. Gray, you know what she is, don't you? Gray didn't answer immediately. Then finally, he said, I know exactly what she is. Mira tensed beside Tom, her glowing eyes locked onto Gray, as if searching for answers. Tom exhaled. Then start talking. Gray's smirk faded. He looked at Mira carefully before speaking in a low voice. She's not just some lost alien, Tom. Tom frowned. Then what is she? Gray took a slow breath. She's a weapon. Mira's expression didn't change, but Tom could feel the tension in the air. A weapon. Suddenly, everything made sense. The tracking, the hidden device inside her, the way she could control technology. Tom clenched his jaw. He had been right from the start. Mira was important. And now, he had no idea what to do next. Tom's mind raced as Gray's words echoed in his head. She's a weapon. He glanced at Mira, but her expression didn't change. She stood still, her glowing silver-blue eyes locked onto Gray, unreadable. But Tom could feel the tension in her posture. Mira spoke first. Explain. Gray sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, I don't know the full story, but I know enough. His sharp eyes focused on her. You're Ellerin, right? Mira nodded slowly. Gray let out a breath. Yeah, thought so. He gestured toward a side door. Come inside. This isn't something we should talk about out here. Tom hesitated. He didn't fully trust Gray. The way he had looked at Mira, like he knew something, made Tom uneasy, but they didn't have many options. He glanced at Mira. You okay with this? She nodded. Yes. Tom sighed. All right. Lead the way. They followed Gray through a dimly lit hallway. The research station was old, the metal walls covered in rust and exposed wires. Tom had been here before, but it looked even worse now. Gray led them into a small lab filled with screens, data pads, and strange devices. He motioned for them to sit, but neither Tom nor Mira moved. Gray leaned against a table and crossed his arms. All right, let me give you a quick history lesson. Tom folded his arms. I'm listening. Gray exhaled. The Ellerins, they weren't just another alien species. They were special, advanced. Their technology was beyond anything we've ever seen. He nodded toward Mira. And she's part of something even rarer. Mira's eyes flickered. What do you mean? Gray studied her for a moment. You're not just an Ellerin. You were created. Tom frowned. Created. Gray nodded. Not born. Built. Designed for something specific. He pointed at her glowing arms. Your body isn't fully organic. It's biotech. Part machine. Part living tissue. You're an artifact from a lost civilization. Mira's expression remained unreadable, but Tom could see the way her fingers tightened slightly. Tom narrowed his eyes. And this thing inside her? Gray sighed. That's the problem. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can guess. Tom waited. Gray looked at Mira. That thing in your chest. It's not just a tracker. It's the key to whatever you were meant to do. Tom's stomach tightened. You mean it's not just how they're finding her? Gray nodded. It's more than that. It could be a power source, a control device, maybe even something worse. Tom rubbed his temples. Great. So we've got a super advanced alien woman with a mystery device inside her. And people are trying to take her back. Gray smirked. Yeah, pretty much. Tom sighed. Can you remove it? Gray hesitated. Maybe, but it's risky. He looked at Mira. If I take it out, I have no idea what will happen to you. Tom turned to Mira. Your call. Mira was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice calm. Remove it. Gray studied her. You sure? She nodded. I will not be hunted anymore. Tom exhaled. All right. Let's do it. Gray motioned toward another room. Come on, I'll set up the equipment. Mira lay on a medical table, the soft glow of the overhead lights reflecting off her metallic skin. Tom stood nearby, arms crossed, watching as Gray prepared his tools. You nervous? Tom asked. Mira looked at him. No. Tom smirked. You never are you? She didn't answer. Gray approached with a small scanner, running it over her chest. The device inside her pulsed faintly on the screen. This thing is deep, Gray muttered. Whoever put it in there, they didn't want it coming out. Tom's jaw tightened. Just be careful. Gray gave him a look. Yeah, I got it. He reached for a precision tool and made a small incision. Mira didn't flinch. She didn't even react. Tom clenched his fists. She doesn't feel pain. Gray worked quickly, his fingers moving with practiced ease. Then, the lights flickered. Tom's stomach dropped. Oh, what was that? Gray frowned. I don't know. The screens in the room glitched. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. Mira's eyes snapped open. Her markings glowed brighter, brighter than Tom had ever seen. Gray, Tom said slowly. What's happening? Gray cursed under his breath. I don't know, man. I think the device is reacting to something. Mira suddenly gasped, her back arching slightly. The energy in the room intensified. Tom stepped forward. Mira. She didn't respond. Her eyes were glowing so brightly that they almost looked like stars. Then, in a single, sharp motion, the machine inside her deactivated. The lights returned to normal. The energy faded. Mira's body relaxed, and for a moment, there was only silence. Tom let out a shaky breath. Is it over? Gray checked the scanner. The device. It's off. He carefully removed it from her body, holding it up. Tom stared at it. The small metallic object looked ancient, covered in strange markings. But now it was nothing more than a dead piece of tech. Gray exhaled. Well, that was fun. Tom turned to Mira. You okay? Mira slowly sat up. She blinked a few times, as if adjusting to something new. Then she met Tom's gaze. I feel free. Tom smirked. Good. But before he could say anything else, the station's alarm blared. Gray cursed. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Tom rushed to the nearest screen. His stomach dropped. Enemy ships. A whole fleet. And they were coming fast. Tom turned to Mira. Looks like they didn't need the tracker after all. Mira stood, her glowing eyes calm. Then we fight. Tom smirked. Now that's the kind of attitude I like. Gray groaned. You guys are insane. Tom grabbed his blaster. Nah, just stubborn. The battle was coming. And this time, they were ready. The station's alarm continued to blare, red warning lights flashing across the walls. Tom clenched his jaw as he stared at the screen. Enemy ships, at least a dozen, were approaching fast. Gray swore under his breath. They must have tracked the energy spike when we deactivated the device. Tom turned to Mira. Can you sense them? Mira closed her eyes for a brief moment. When she opened them, they glowed brighter. Yes, they are close, and they are not alone. Tom frowned. What do you mean? Mira's voice was calm. They have sensed something ahead. It is already inside the station. Tom felt a chill crawl up his spine. They weren't just being attacked from the outside. Someone, or something, was already here. Gray pulled a blaster from under his desk. Great, just great. Tom checked his own weapon, then turned to Mira. All right, we split up. Gray, you stay here and get the station's defenses running. Mira and I will deal with whatever's inside. Gray muttered something under his breath, but nodded. Fine, just don't die. Tom smirked. No promises. Tom moved quickly through the dimly lit hallways, Mira right behind him. The station was silent except for the distant hum of machinery. Then, a sound. A sharp metallic clank echoed through the corridor. Tom raised his blaster, heart pounding. Mira's glowing eyes flickered. Something is coming. Tom swallowed hard. Yeah, I figured. The next second, the ceiling panel above them burst open. A dark figure dropped down, landing with unnatural grace. Its body was sleek, humanoid, but covered in shifting black metal. Its eyes glowed with a cold blue light. Tom barely had time to react before the thing lunged. He fired 3 shots, direct hits, but the creature moved too fast. It dodged, twisting in the air. Mira stepped forward. With one sharp motion, she raised her hand, and the creature froze. Tom's eyes widened. What did you just do? Mira's voice was calm. It is connected to the same energy as the device inside me. I can stop it. The creature trembled, its limbs twitching violently. But then, with a sudden burst of power, it broke free. Mira staggered back slightly. It is strong. Tom gritted his teeth. Yeah, I noticed. The creature lunged again. This time, Mira met it head-on. She dodged its first attack with inhuman speed, then struck back. Her fist slammed into its chest, sending it flying into the wall. Tom fired again, this time aiming for its head. The energy blast hit directly, and the creature collapsed. For a moment, there was only silence. Tom exhaled. Is it dead? Mira studied the body, then shook her head. No, but it will not wake up soon. Tom sighed. Good enough. Then, boom. The station shook violently as an explosion rocked the outer hull. Mira's head snapped toward the direction of the docking bay. The fleet has arrived. Tom clenched his fists. Then let's go give them a proper welcome. When Tom and Mira reached the main control room, Gray was already at the console, frantically typing. I got the station's auto turrets online, Gray said. They're holding off the smaller ships, but the big one. He pointed to the screen. That thing's gonna tear us apart. Tom's stomach tightened. The enemy mothership was massive, dwarfing the rest of the fleet. Its weapons were already charging. We won't last long against that, Gray muttered. Tom ran a hand through his hair. Then we take the fight to them. Gray blinked. Are you crazy? Tom smirked. Maybe. He turned to Mira. Can you fly? Mira tilted her head slightly. Yes. Tom grinned. Good, because we're about to steal ourselves a ride. Gray groaned. I really hate this plan. Tom patted his shoulder. That's how you know it's a good one. The docking bay was already under attack when they arrived. Enemy soldiers in sleek, black armor were storming in, firing at the station's security droids. Tom and Mira took cover behind a crate. Tom glanced at her. You ready? Mira's glowing eyes focused. Yes. Tom smirked. Then let's cause some trouble. He jumped out, firing rapidly, taking down 2 soldiers before they even saw him. Mira moved like lightning, dodging blasts, and taking out enemies with precise, powerful strikes. Within minutes, the docking bay was clear. Tom let out a breath. All right, let's grab a ship. Mira's gaze shifted to a sleek enemy fighter near the entrance. That one. Tom grinned. I like your style. They sprinted toward the fighter and climbed inside. Mira took the pilot's seat. Her fingers moved over the controls, and the ship came to life almost instantly. Tom raised an eyebrow. You sure you've never done this before? Mira's lips curved slightly. I am sure. The ship lifted off, shooting out of the docking bay just as another explosion shook the station. Tom clenched his fists. All right, let's take down that mothership. Mira accelerated toward the massive enemy ship, weaving through enemy fire with impossible precision. Tom readied the weapons. Let's see how they like this. He fired, and the enemy ships around them exploded in bright bursts of energy. But the mothership's defenses were strong. Too strong. Tom cursed. We need a way inside. Mira's eyes glowed brighter. There is a way. Tom frowned. What are you thinking? Mira's voice was calm. They are still connected to me. I can make them open the doors. Tom's eyes widened. Wait, you can do that? Mira nodded. Yes. She placed her hands on the controls, and suddenly, the massive doors of the mothership began to open. Tom's heart pounded. Mira, you are full of surprises. She met his gaze. Are you ready? Tom smirked. Let's finish this. Their ship raced forward, straight into the belly of the enemy. The real fight was just beginning. The stolen fighter raced through the massive opening in the enemy mothership. Inside, the hangar was filled with sleek black enemy ships, security droids, and armored soldiers scrambling to respond. Tom gripped his blaster tightly. We're flying straight into a death trap. Mira's glowing eyes didn't waver. Then we fight. Tom smirked. I was hoping you'd say that. As soon as their ship landed with a sharp thud, enemy soldiers raised their weapons, forming a tight perimeter around them. Mira and Tom stepped out, weapons ready. A tall alien figure emerged from the ranks. A commander. His armor shimmered, and his glowing eyes locked onto Mira. So the lost weapon has returned. His voice was cold. Mira stood firm. I am not your weapon. The commander's lips curled into a smirk. That is not for you to decide. With a flick of his hand, the soldiers opened fire. Tom dived for cover, blasting at the nearest enemies. Mira moved like lightning, dodging attacks with impossible speed. She leaped forward, striking down 2 soldiers with swift, precise hits. Tom gritted his teeth, ducking behind a crate. He fired at a droid, sending sparks flying as it collapsed. Mira spun, blocking a strike from an enemy blade. With a sharp motion, she grabbed the soldier's arm and flung him across the hangar. The commander watched calmly, then raised his hand. Mira suddenly froze, her body stiffening. Tom's eyes widened. Mira, what's wrong? Mira struggled, her glowing eyes flickering. He is controlling me. The commander's smirk widened. You were built to obey. It is in your code. Tom clenched his fists. Like hell it is. He raised his blaster and fired directly at the commander. The commander dodged, his movements too fast. He turned to Tom, his glowing eyes narrowing. You are nothing but an inconvenience. Tom rolled just as an energy blast struck the ground where he had been standing. Mira's body trembled, her hands twitching as she tried to resist. I will not obey. The commander stepped closer. You cannot fight your nature. Mira gritted her teeth. Watch me. Her body shook violently, and then a burst of energy erupted from her. The force threw the commander backward, sending soldiers flying across the hangar. Tom's jaw dropped. Whoa. Mira stood tall, her markings glowing brighter than ever. She turned to Tom. Let's end this. Tom grinned. Now we're talking. Mira and Tom fought their way through the mothership, moving toward the central control room. The corridors were crawling with enemies, but Mira cleared a path with inhuman precision. Tom covered her, taking down any soldier who got too close. So what's the plan when we get to the control room? Mira didn't hesitate. We disable the ship's core. Tom's eyes widened. Won't that make the whole thing explode? Mira nodded. Yes. Tom let out a sharp laugh. You really don't do things halfway, huh? Mira's lips curved slightly. No. They reached the control room, but before they could enter, the commander appeared again. His armor was cracked from their last fight, but his eyes burned with fury. I have had enough of this. Mira stepped forward. Then finish it. The commander lunged, faster than before. Mira met him head-on. Their fight was a blur of speed, strength, and raw energy. Sparks flew as they clashed, their movements almost too fast for Tom to follow. Tom gritted his teeth. He had to help. His eyes darted to the control panel. If he could get to it. He sprinted forward, dodging blasts as enemy droids tried to stop him. Mira saw his movement and delivered a powerful strike to the commander, sending him staggering back. Tom reached the console and slammed a button. The ship shuddered as the core destabilized. An alarm blared. Warning. Core overload in FIV menu keys. The commander's eyes widened. You fool. You will die here too. Tom smirked. Yeah, but at least I'll die annoying you. Mira moved fast, delivering a final devastating blow to the commander's chest. His eyes dimmed, his body collapsing to the floor. Tom let out a breath. Okay, time to go. Tom and Mira raced through the ship, dodging falling debris and explosions as the mothership began to fall apart. They reached the hangar and jumped into the stolen fighter. Mira took the controls, and the ship blasted out just as the mothership exploded in a massive fireball. The shockwave sent them spinning, but Mira steadied the ship, guiding them back toward Gray's station. Tom leaned back, breathing heavily. That was insane. Mira glanced at him. Yes. Tom laughed. I like insane. Back at the station, Gray was waiting for them, arms crossed. He let out a long breath. You're both alive. I'm actually surprised. Tom smirked. Me too. Gray shook his head. So what now? Tom turned to Mira. That's up to her. Mira was silent for a moment. Then she spoke. I choose my own path now. Tom grinned. Good choice. Gray rolled his eyes. Well, wherever you two go next, just try not to blow up any more ships. Tom chuckled. No promises. Mira glanced at Tom, her glowing eyes soft. Where will we go? Tom smirked. Anywhere we want. Mira nodded. Then let's go. Together, they stepped onto the ship, ready for whatever adventure came next.